Hi everyone, my name is Beliaeva and I work for mobile games publisher Quantum. And before starting the lecture, I would like to say a small remark. It's actually the first time I'm delivering a lecture in English, so if it goes really very bad, you are free to leave the room. I won't be offended. Well, actually I will be, but who cares? And today I will tell you about the problems with outsourcing expertise in game design and producing, and how to solve some of these problems. Even though I work for a mobile games publisher, I will mainly talk about my previous job, which was in Arpuguru, the first commercial consulting agency in Russia. It was on the market for 1.5 years, and we worked with more than 200 contractors and completed around 40 projects. And for all these projects, we used outsource. The main idea of the business was to connect those who lack certain expertise with those who have it, so that experts could help other people solve their problems. And we were as a mediator agency between that. And also we brought that approach to the Quantum company. And right now I want to share with you all the mistakes we have collected and all the approaches we have invented, so that you can use expertise for your own benefits. Well, why would you want to hear me? I mean, why would you want to know about the external expertise? First of all of us have friends, at least most people do, but we all have colleagues. And each time we ask our colleagues for advice or feedback, each time we go to the conference and showcase our games, we actually are using external expertise. But the point is that we don't use it efficient. No one knows there are no standards, and no one is responsible for advice they give. And if we learn how to receive the expertise, how to take it, it will be more proficient, and in the end, the whole industry will benefit from that. So I will start with telling you what's wrong with external expertise. First of all, it's very vague. Sometimes when you ask expert for, I don't know, several ways to increase KPIs, it can be detailed, but most of the time, what you receive is a piece of knowledge. And a piece of knowledge is something which cannot really be measured. And moreover, if you hadn't had that knowledge before, so you can't really know if that piece of advice is relevant, if it is accurate, if it is up to date for the market. And it's also sensitive. I mean, when you're outsourcing game design, you actually give away the very heart of your game. So you may need a lot of NDAs. And in our practice, there were lots of companies who said that we are not using external experts because we are afraid they would steal our idea or our approaches. And it really happened a lot. And it's hard to evaluate the process. I mean, you ask expert to analyze the project, and he says, I will need 40 hours. Is that okay? Is that enough? Maybe it's too much. And if you're paying him for the hours, how will you know that he's not doubling the numbers just to get more? Is there a standard? There's no standard, so you just don't know. You have to rely on that. And as I said, results are not always measurable. It's not like the art or a code when you receive a piece of work and you know that if it is exactly the same thing you wanted, like you said, I need you to draw me a blonde girl, and if you receive a dark-haired girl, that is definitely something wrong. But with the expertise, it's not that easy, especially if you ask for feedback on the development stage. And expert provides you with advice, but the results you will see only when the game is live on the market. And even then, it's hard to tell what part of its success or failure belonged to the advice of the expert. And there is a need for constant communication. On the contrary to outsourcing art or code, the less feedback you get there, the better the job is. Here you have to provide constant feedback. You have to talk with an expert so he will know about the game, about what's going on, about some changes about the past of the game, about the story, about the team size, or actually everything. You need to give him as much information as possible. But there is something right with the expertise. There should be something right with the expertise. The point is that the industry is very mature, and there are a lot of people who have knowledge how to solve your problems and it is very efficient to ask them these questions. You can save your money, your time, and effort by asking the right person the right question. Or you can do research yourself and spend a lot of money and a lot of time. So now we have agreed that expertise is something good, but when to ask for it, when to ask for advice? Maybe on the concept stage. Well, why not? I mean, you can ask for feedback on the very early stage so that an expert can tell you if there are mistakes already there, like, for example, your core gameplay doesn't correspond to the setting or the audience. It is good for proof of concepts. We once were asked by our clients so that the expert will make a review of the game concept so that they can go to their investor and say then that the expert proves it's a good concept and that the investor will give them money, perhaps, I don't know. Perhaps on production stage, well, I think you definitely should ask for expertise on production stage, and there are several main reasons for that. First of all, when you are developing the game, you are developing. You are not researching the market, and it's hard to feel the pulse of the industry when you are fully in development of the game. And for indie companies, it's kind of expensive to have someone who will be researching the market and not developing the game. So it might be useful for you to, at a certain stage, to ask an expert to provide you with feedback and review and tell you what are the latest trends on the market. And the second main point is that team, after a certain time of development, becomes somewhat deformed by a project. Team gets used to some bad decisions, to 100 steps, 100 windows just to click the button OK, and they just don't see the bad decisions. It's like the blind spot. And here, it is very useful to ask for expert to look at the game and give feedback, because he will look with the eyes of a new person. And all these bad decisions, they will just blink to him, and they will just step out and say, "In the bad decision, you have to remove me from the game." And the designers, they just don't see it. They're like blinded a little bit. And also, the production stage, you might find yourself in a situation when you lack certain internal expertise. For example, you are developing a game, and suddenly you realize that you need a person with stronger mathematical skills, because the game becomes more and more complex, and you just don't have that person in your team, and it will be very expensive to hire him, because you need to spend time to find him, to spend time to interview, and he will also require some time to learn the project. And after he completed his work and solved this mathematical task, he's not useful for you. But you already hired him. Like, what am I going to do with that? And it is very useful to outsource such tasks. And when the game is online, when the game is live, you can ask external experts to provide you with some information about new ways for user acquisition or monetization trends, or some ideas for events in the game. So actually, it is time for expertise on any stage, and really don't be like that dog. That dog is bad. So, expert flows. Experts, when we started the business, we thought that experts, they're like a huge stars. They don't make mistakes. They are just so great. They are titans of the game day world. But we are all people, and experts are people too. And they all had their pluses and minuses. But overall, there are like 3 main flaws that experts have. The first of all, they are experienced. It sounds a bit odd, because we do pay the money for their experience, but it also works in another way. Every expert has his legacy of bad decisions and good decisions, or the mistakes he made, and he carries that experience to the next project. And sometimes it may backfire, because sometimes the expert just, he had the one good decision, and he wants to implement that in the next project, but it just won't work here, because it's another game, and the market has changed, and everything has changed. And so just, you have to change, you old bastard. Experts can be carried away. There are certain people in the game industry who have whose knowledge covers like a large field of game design, but most experts, they have their own fields in which they are professional. And if you ask them to analyze the game, the expert can really spend a lot of time and effort into one specific problem because he is entertained by that. This way, we would recommend to ask different experts to analyze your game so that you have different points of view. And there is a problem of minor problems. The games aren't perfect, and there are no perfect game. I mean, you can pick any game, and you will definitely find there problems with UI and UX, with tutorial, and with narrative. I mean, definitely. And experts will also tell you that there are a lot of problems with UI, but the thing is that if you change the color scheme from green to blue, it won't change something dramatically in the game. And if you ask different experts, they will give you like different feedbacks. So when you receive, I don't know, a 10-page document telling how bad your UI is, maybe that's not the thing you have to change in the first place. And yeah, so we are going to the problems. We are going deeper and deeper into the dark side of the expertise, and I will tell you about the problems you will face if you want, if you invite an external expert. That will definitely happen. The first is stress and resistance. Just imagine you are a game designer, you're working on a project, and then one shiny Thursday, producer comes to office and says, okay, I just hired that expert who will review all the work that you have made and will point out to each mistakes you have made. And you're like, what? Do you think I'm an idiot? You think I'm a bad professional. Maybe you want to fire me, and the team becomes really very stressed. And here comes also resistance. I actually have two stories about that. The first one, we were working with a project, and the game designer from the client side really felt threatened. And he was very aggressive. He didn't want to respond, and if we asked him a question, we would have waited for like a day and maybe more. And he really didn't want to communicate. It was very, very hard to work in such conditions. Well, he got fired in the end, but that wasn't because of us. Well, it was a little bit, but still, we were very nice to him. And the second one about the resistance, it's like a natural process. When someone goes and says something critical about your work, you want to defend your decisions even if you know they're bad. I mean, that actually happened to me last evening. A friend of mine was giving me feedback about my presentation, and even though I knew that these slides really suck, I wanted to defend them because they were my slides. Even though I wanted to move them away, I spent half an hour telling him why I put that slide here, and then I just moved it away. Integration. That's kind of obvious thing. You have your own processes, expert has his own processes. It is sometimes very hard to adjust to each other, and sometimes you will have to switch task trackers or something like that. That can be really stressful for the team also. Expectations. Well, when you ask for expertise, for advice or feedback, you usually have a picture in mind of what I will receive, like 10 ways to increase my day one retention. But in the end, you can receive a feedback in the form of that game really should be shut down. And that happens. It's a little bit unpredictable. That happened quite a lot in our practice. And once our expert gave a feedback to the team in the form of, if I were the developer of that game, I wouldn't be developing that. So it's unpredictable. Underestimates. Experts tend to underestimate the time they need to analyze the game. And when we were an agency, we covered that from our own budget. But just bear in mind that the game might be more complicated than they look like, and only you, a developer, knows everything about the game. And it's really better to double all the deadlines that expert gives you. So like if he says that he will need 2 weeks, you'd better bear in mind that it might be 4 weeks. And it takes time. Expertise is not something that happens like in one day. It may take months, and just be ready for that and think in advance. Next, I'll be talking about something very interesting. Like again, yeah. So I was talking a lot about the problems you will face, and now I will just give you a piece of advice how to prepare your project, your team, so that you can overcome the problems. And the process of reviewing your game by some external expert will go as smooth as possible. First of all, evaluate your problem. That also does sound quite obvious, but it happened a lot in our practice when a client would come to us and say, we have a problem with a day 30 retention. I mean, it's very low. We look at the game, looked at the analytics, and we found out that their tutorial conversion was like 10%. And we said, you may have a problem with a day 30 retention, but that might not be the critical one. Maybe we should work on your tutorial. That's the same, just asking the right question is actually the 50% of the answer. So take your time and find out what is the real problem. And prepare history data. Expert doesn't know anything about the game. He doesn't know what approaches you have tried, what features you have implemented and cut off. He doesn't know anything about the game. And the more information you provide, the better his feedback will be. In our practice, it happened a lot. Then the expert would sit and write a 100-page review about the game. And in the end, he will give that to the client. Client reads it and says, oh, we have tried that, and we have tried that. It didn't work for us. OK, so why didn't you tell us? I mean, we spent our time and your money on giving you the ideas you already had. That's just stupid, I mean. And set clear limits. Limits in thing of the budgets, some other time constraints. If you plan to soft launch a game in 3 months, tell that so that expert wouldn't give you ideas for features which would need 8 months to implement. And if you have an investor who says that this game should be only about the busty blondies, so tell that to the expert so he knows in which limits he has to work. That also is a little bit about the project. I'll tell you a case. We were working with a small game, and expert played a bit about it. It was a hyper-casual game, so it's like it should be very small in terms of mechanics also. And expert played like 15 minutes or maybe 20 minutes, and he said, "Okay, so I see these problems in the game. Write them down." And the client came and said, like, "Okay, you played 20 minutes of the game, but if you have played 25, you would see that we have another boss. Okay, so then you should tell." All these limits to the expert so that he won't have to do the job twice. Decide on results. I've already told you that the results of the expertise are not always measurable. So so you can discuss with expert and decide on what the results will be like. Maybe it's a form of a document. It happens to us once that we were working with a small game. You have to control the elevator. And the expert said that you have to adjust the speed of the elevator so that be more engaging for players. And he got the access to the configs of the game, and he just put the numbers and said, "Okay, the job is done. Now it is okay. I like it now." And the client said, "Okay, but we don't consider this as a result, because we want a documentation on how you choose that speed. Why did you choose that? And what were the calculations behind it?" And the expert didn't understand that, because from his point of view, he did the job. And the last one is get to know the expert. And I don't mean drink beer with him somewhere. Okay, you can do that. That could help. But also get to know his background. Is he more about the project? Is he more about business? I mean, it happened to us once. We were working on a large MMO mobile game, and it was kind of a very old project and dying one. And it had a lot of technical debt. Its coding was, I mean, it was really very complicated. And an expert that we have hired for that job, he said that the team should rewrite the whole code because it was so hard to implement any features. And from the side of the project, it might have been a good advice, but from the business side, it was like awful thing to do for a dying project. But it was because the expert was about the project. He didn't really care about the business and the money. He only wanted to create a nice project. And about preparations for your team. Well, that's kind of obvious. You should tell them that there's an expert is coming, that you love them, that you adore them. They are cool game designers. You don't want to fire them, maybe. And that everything will be okay. And prepare space for communication so that they can talk with an expert. It really happens if they can talk to him one-on-one, not through you, but ask him direct questions. And also try to bring all key people together. I mean, that happened to us a lot. Then a client would add to the Slack channel a game designer only a month after the start of work. That's just not very convenient. And it will take time for experts to analyze the game, to study the references, to study your competitors, to analyze the market, and so on and so on. And be ready to always communicate with him. It will take your time. It will take time of your team, and they will spend time to answer his questions, to show him something in the game. And don't be mad at that. It really takes time, and you need to synchronize always. Once we received the game, it was a Tamagotchi for young girls, and the client asked us to provide him with ideas for monetization. We analyzed the market, we analyzed the games, the similar games, and we prepared a document when we described how and when he should put the ads placement, because these types of games, they are mainly monetized with advertisement. And only after that, he told us, I don't want any advertisement on our game. And we were like, God, why didn't you tell us that before? I mean, so it's all about the synchronization, it's all about the communication. And discuss the results. That's a very important point, I mean, a really very important point. When you outsource the art or a code, you just take the result, say thank you, pay the money, and go away. When it's about the expertise and the game design, you take the results, you study them, and you ask questions. Questions are actually part of the expertise, a large part of expertise. And some experts, they are just so bad at writing that you will really need to communicate with them after that. So you can ask questions. Why did you propose that feature to us? Why did you choose these games as our references? Why would you think this approach will work for us? And they will tell you, and a lot of, and it really actually is, I would say it's a half of the result. Well, that is it about the expertise. Thank you for your attention, and as it is dangerous to go alone, take my piece of advice with you. I hope.
Thank you, Victoria.
Hope it was at least a little bit useful.
Any questions from the audience about outsourcing? Okay, I have one which includes two basically. Okay, yeah. What are your two takeaways, key takeaways regarding outsourcing to do it successfully?
To what?
Two key takeaways. If you need to sum up 30 minutes into like...
Yeah, I think I would like sum up the 30 minutes.
You can't go back, no.
Like in this picture, so just, you don't see it. Okay, then I will have to do it in words. Like maybe the first thing is prepare. Prepare information, prepare yourself, do a lot of preparations. It's about the homework. And the second thing would be, I think it would be about communication. I mean, outsourcing game design is really about communication. It's like having a, it's like talking to your own game designer. He needs to know your vision, he needs to know what you think, he needs to know what are the changes you want to implement in the game, and that really requires a lot of communication. Don't be shy.
Okay, thank you. So do your homework and be ready to communicate.
Yeah.
Thank you, Victoria.
Thank you.
Yeah, we have now a coffee break, but before we go there, it was a question. Or maybe you can do later. So, or you want to... Okay, let's do one last. Yeah, let's do one last question and then...
Sure, we have time? Okay. Basically, my question would be, why a gaming developer or a company who've developed a game would choose a publishing company like yours instead of just going and publish it on App Store and just doing paid traffic acquisition campaigns directly? Is it the consulting that they're looking from you, or to be honest, I don't understand. Let's say I have a game, I don't directly understand why I can't just go on Facebook and just start a little campaign and test the usage and just if it's ROI friendly, just scale up and that's it. So why gaming companies use publishers like yours?
Okay, it's not really about expertise, but I will take this time to advertise the publishing company a little bit. Well, the main difference is that when you go to a publishing company, they have scale, they have large media budget, they have a large team of media buyers and designers who can work non-stop, who can create not only 1, 2, 3, 5 campaigns, but 60 campaigns for the game and spend a lot more money. And they have, as far as they have budgets, they can spend some money going into minus or zero just to train the algorithms, just to train the buyers. So it's mostly about the scale, the expertise, and scale and expertise. And also publishers, they provide not only help with marketing and media budget, but also game design. I mean, for example, when games come to us, we analyze them and we provide them with feedback about the monetization mostly, so new ads placement or about in-apps or how to redesign the shop. Also about tutorial and this onboarding. And if we lack certain expertise, we just use the external experts who can analyze that for us and provide us with feedback. So that's mostly it. It's about expertise and the scale.
Okay, great question, great answer. Thank you again.